Hey YouTube, editing Devin here in the future. Thanks for stopping and talking to me for just a moment. I just wanted to let you guys know a quick disclaimer. The first three podcasts that I filmed, plus my little I'm back, tidbit video, had some pretty poor pixelation quality. This is just isolated to those first few videos. Unfortunately, I'm still learning, and these are just little growing pains. But as you can see from this video, the audio and the visual quality has exponentially improved. Huge thank out. Make sure all of you guys thank Compost in the comments, because literally I would not be able to do this or been able to have fixed this without Compost, my guy in the chair, my dude. So big thanks to him for helping me figure it out to get this nice, crisp, clear image. But just bear with me, please, for the first couple podcasts, and I'll always put this little disclaimer here at the very beginning, so you know. But that is really it. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the video. Welcome to another episode of Comics and Stuff. Did you guys think that little I'm back video is all that you guys were going to get today? Absolutely not. Today, I wanted to start off reposting with a really great discussion with two of my good friends, Jake and Mikey. We're going to be talking about how the collectibles industry has changed in the last 2 years since my last post, and how the pandemic has changed the industry as a whole. The reason I brought these two fellas on is because we've got a fresh set of eyes with Jake, who has I guess, begun starting collecting at the beginning of the pandemic, as well as Mikey, who is a comic book professional and has been in the industry for quite some time. So I'm going to bring them in, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. If you give me just a moment here. Here is Jake and Mikey. Jake, why don't you start us off? Tell us about who you are and how you came into collecting.
Yeah, how's it going, guys? Good to see y'all. And I got started collecting, like you said, at the beginning of the pandemic. It was really 2020, probably February, I think is when it was. And I'd been a lifetime collector. As a kid, had sports cards, Pokemon cards, you name it, all those things that kids like to do and take to school in exchange. And as I got to be an adult with adult money, I realized adult money also has to buy food. And so, other things have to come first. And then, as advancing my career, my wife started working too. We had a little extra change to spend. And so I decided I wanted to pick out something else to start collecting, and love entertainment, love superheroes, and just love the collecting world and the history that surrounds collecting. And kind of brought me to comics. And then oddly enough, I found your channel on YouTube, and found a wealth of knowledge there, and something that really resonated with me, and got me into doing what I do now. And you can see, I mean, everything around me has it's kind of led me to where I'm at now.
Love it. They say an adult dollar is actually about $100. Let's move to you, Mikey. Tell me a little bit about yourself. How did you get into collecting? You've been in it forever. Let's hear about it.
Well, sort of forever. I started out with coins when I was like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years old. I had a little state quarter collection thing, and I was like,
yeah, I had one of those too. I still have it up there in one of my shelves.
But no, I've been full-time dealing comics for nearly 5 years now. And I grew up like Jake. I was collecting Pokemon cards, comics, all that kind of stuff. I was a superhero nerd, always been a nerd, and just had a passion for it. So when I finally decided to make it, when I left college to do this, and I had the chance to make it my career, I was like, rock on.
Okay. Now I guess we'll jump kind of into the discussionary part of it. So when you were in college, Mikey, for you, was comic books, was that like the idea to go into that industry, or were you studying something else?
Well, I was a finance major. So little different than pop culture and comic books, and much more boring. But I was always, buying weird things. So, it was not much of a stretch, and, all that
just kind of happened, fell into it. All right.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. And Jake, what is your background? What do you do?
Well, now I'm in real estate. I actually just started doing that. My wife has done it for a couple of years now, and joined their team. But before that, I also was a BBA in finance, Mikey. So I guess two peas in a pod there. And I worked in the investments industry for a while, doing stuff that a lot of people don't know that happens behind the scenes with investments, for private markets investing, and worked for a large mutual fund company in the Dallas area, and eventually just decided that I was ready to do something else, and that's why I'm in real estate now. But I mean, kind of feel like it kind of bleeds into collecting a little bit too.
Collecting
The
houses.
investment side of things. I like to say that I don't collect for the investment side of it. I just do it for the joy of owning what I own. But there's a piece to it, and that kind of drove my interest as well. So I think that kind of helped me dig deeper into comics and get into it as quickly as I did.
And I failed high school math, so I'm not sure what I'm against. Okay. So now, when for both of you guys, we'll start with Jake, since you were just talking. When you got back into collecting at in February 2020, what kind of sparked that? What really got you like, okay, I you know what, I want to do this. I want to buy some books. I want to. What got you? What brought you in?
It was really that collecting itch, man. I'd had it since I can't tell you the last time I collected something before comics. It had to have been sports cards when I was a kid and opening packs, or maybe even Pokemon lasted till probably my middle school age. And I've got a whole story that I think I've told you that I won't get into now as to why I stopped with Pokemon. But I had other things, and yeah, I had that collecting itch, and I had kind of just shoved it down for years because I didn't have the money to support it, and was more focused on in college, buying a meal every now and then instead of having to eat in the caf at the university. And
Fair enough.
so once I had a little bit of extra money to spend, I thought, this might be something cool. And I mean, if you know me, I like to really dig in and do a ton of research on something before I even
He does. Oh
dip
yeah.
my toe into the kiddie pool on it. So I like to be well educated on what I'm doing, at least to the highest extent that a beginner can be. And I started light. I mean, I started with Rebirth Batman. That was the first kind of
Is
stuff
that
that
New
I dug
52? Is
into.
that,
No, that's
or no, the
Rebirth.
older
It's the
stuff?
one after. So it's the,
Oh,
volume 1, volume 2 is New 52, volume
mm.
3 is Rebirth. And
Okay.
that just came from a suggestion from my local comic shop. And sure enough, I couldn't stop putting it down, and had bought every issue up to the current issue. At the time, I think it was right after 89, which was
Okay.
Punchline's first appearance, and everyone was going nuts over Punchline. But yeah, I couldn't put it down, and
Yeah,
so
that's
then I
really
just
enough.
started learning more and more and more about Batman, and that's kind of where
Yeah.
I got my start, and developed
And
into
now you're a Batman man.
what I have now. I mean,
Batman
I've
man.
got him on my arm. Which one is it? That one right there. So
Yeah. All right.
but yeah.
And Mikey, why don't you tell me a little bit? So, I know that you have a lot of expertise in comic books, and you're very well versed in that. Are
I
there
pretend.
any other, I guess, industry, or I guess uh, collectible niches that you are pretty well versed in? I know that you have a lot to do with animation cells and VHS tapes, but like with your current work now, do you need to be really well, like tightly versed in all of that stuff, or
Well,
is it kind of
I
like
can
a
yeah, I can fake it in most collectible fields at least,
love
because
it? Okay.
once you speak one well enough, then there's crossover. So like I animation cell, I love animation art. I think it's super undervalued. So there's that like investment aspect to it. Also, just owning like a frame of your favorite TV show from when you were a kid, like that scene, like that's
Right.
you can't really beat that. And then same thing. I mean, I know video games. I know VHS tapes now too well, and beta tapes. Movies in general. I know movie posters. I know coins to a degree. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I fake it. I don't know it great, but I can figure out most things if you just give me my phone, and I can
Just get
figure
a
out
few minutes of Google time, and you're down. You got it. All right.
the.
Got to remember that. All right. So now here's a good one for you guys, and I'm curious. Well, Mikey, you were last talking, so you answer first, then Jake, you. Since the pandemic, have there been any dramatic? I mean, obviously there have been, but what are some of the most noticeable changes in the collectibles market that you have noticed as a professional who works behind the scenes? And then Jake Free, once it's your turn, when you were coming into it as the pandemic has started, what are some noticeable changes that you have seen progress over your time since getting into it a little more seriously? Mikey, you first, my friend.
Well, stuff is much more expensive now.
Yeah.
That's the big thing. There's been a lot more time to, sit at your computer and be bored. So, people have gotten kind of back into their youth and this nostalgia effect. So they've been, like kind of scanning through eBay or different,
Mhm.
websites and prices for nearly every category has shot up dramatically. So just over the last 2 years, it's been, you know, monumental. So that's why I feel kind of bad for Jake, considering he got in now. Uh, he actually has to be smart with it. A lot of us, like, you know, we kind of just hit the lottery.
Yeah.
The stuff's
Yeah.
worth, you know, 4 or 5 times more than it was at the start of the pandemic. Very few things are worth roughly the same or less. Most things are to the moon. So yeah, I mean, the pandemic's been really cool for that. And yeah, I
A
mean,
lot of
just
people made good money.
more notice to everything, which has been really awesome.
Okay. And Jake, why don't you answer? Then I got a follow-up question for both you guys.
Yeah, well, my answer is the same as Mikey's. It's price, man. And I mean, if you look back to the beginning of 2020, not a whole lot's changed in the world, and I think that kind of from the beginning of the pandemic until now, we're kind of in the same place, and we're starting to slowly step out of that and wade into new areas of life that we should have been in 2020, but instead we're waiting until 2022 to get there. But I think the price of these comics, I was lucky enough to get in on the lighter side of it, being in February 2020, and we're in Texas, so you know things didn't really shut down all that heavily until I
Right.
want to say it was maybe April of 2020. I think that's when my work sent me home to work from home for the next year and a half, when they told us it was going to be 2 or 3 weeks, you know. But
And that was
we,
a good time to buy.
yeah,
Like,
and it
it was
was. I
a
mean, like
little
that
bit of a
one.
dip
This
right
one,
before the
where's it right
pandemic.
here? This one right here. It's a fantastic 452 first Black Panther. I was able to get that from my comic shop for, I think it was like, it's a 300 bucks or something like that. And
Wow.
now, I mean, you're not going to find that book for under 750. I mean, that's just where we are now, and that's kind of how it took off at the very beginning of my collecting, and it's kind of stayed there. And another thing that I've noticed that people have almost become obsessed with in the market, there's you know different areas of comic collecting that people focus in, but the one that I've seen the most people jump onto and really dig in hard on is speculation collecting, and
Absolutely.
especially modern speculation. And since I was a young collector at the time, you know, I jumped on that train too, but I just recently purged my collection of all the junk that I bought then that I didn't care at all about, and got some good money and was able to get some good books, cross them off my list. So
It's safe to
but
say you're a
yeah,
vintage guy now.
yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely. I
It's
mean,
okay.
you know, I do dabble into Bronze Age and Copper Age, as long as they're Batman keys. But you know, for the most part, I like to own pieces of history, right? You know, I like things that mean something, not something that may mean something if Marvel puts one person in a show, that they could then put someone else in a show, and then that would mean that this person would have a small chance of appearing in the small episode for, you know, that kind of stuff. It's just kind of, it's worn on me a little bit, and then just kind of showed me what I feel is important and for my personal collection, and it's really helped me hone and drive down to a point of what I want to collect and what I want to own. And it's been a great
It's hard to
journey, I
get
think,
yourself
through
to
all
that
of that.
spot. So
Yeah.
now, what do you guys think? Along with the pandemic craziness and people sitting at home and watching, going on the internet, just like looking at stuff they've missed out on. Do you think FOMO has a really big play in this, or do you think that's kind of Mikey? You first. I see you laughing.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm guilty of it. I've bought tons of stuff over the pandemic because I've been seeing it, like, go sky high, like, like Amazing Spider-Man 300, for instance.
Oh
I
yeah,
bought one for $7,500 because I thought it was going to go to 10 grand, and now it's sitting at around, I don't know, $6,000 for a 9.8 of that book. But there's many things that offset that. It's just, there absolutely is, based off of speculation on what movie's coming out, and when things become less plentiful online, you jump on them sometimes, and sometimes you do well, other times it's like, that was a mistake. But
yeah.
yeah,
I would like to do an episode at some point in the future of get a couple of us all on there and talk about our biggest plunders in the comic book or in collecting in general, because I have made my fair share of mistakes, and they're all hilarious and embarrassing. So
yeah. And what
okay,
you got to do with your plunders is you just got to sell them, like,
yeah,
because there's
Yeah.
no point of having dead weight, and it's like counterintuitive. You hate losing money, but it's like you have your money tied up in something you don't believe in, so you got to get rid of it.
oh yeah,
So, like, yeah, sure. I bought the thing for $7,500. I sold it, I think, for $5,500. I was like, all right, on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And you just reinvest it into others.
Wash your hands of it. Okay.
Exactly,
Well,
exactly.
yeah, and the worst thing you can do is beat yourself up about something like that. I mean, it's so easy to get down on yourself for losing out, for
Mhm.
either missing out on something that exploded in value and you were about to buy it, but you waited a month and then you're screwed now,
Yep.
you know. But you don't want to beat
Sold
yourself up
too
about that
early.
kind of stuff
Ugh.
because
Right.
it ruins the passion, right? Just take the wins
Well,
as wins and take the losses as losses and keep doing what you love. That's the best thing about this hobby.
oh yeah. Well, now, and speaking of FOMO and some things exploding and balancing themselves out, there have been a couple collecting bubbles, I guess, for lack of a better term, that came up. We had that huge Pokemon boom where everything just went absolutely insane. And then we had that when video games first started, they skyrocketed and they kind of went down and up and then kind of have balanced themselves out. Whereas Pokemon has slowly kind of kind of teetered. Do you guys clearly video games are around to stay, or they're here to stay? You know, video game grading, I mean, CGC just opened up their CGC video game grading services, and cards. I mean, Pokemon cards or Magic the Gathering cards or whatever have always been popular, but now there's this just tidal wave of new trading card games coming out to the market. What do you guys think of these? Do you think that these things are meant to last? Do you guys think that a lot of these things are going to continue to be huge drivers in the secondary collectibles market, or you think one is better than the other? I'm of the opinion that video games are here to stay. Magic the Gathering and Pokemon, maybe Flesh and Blood, but that I'm a little biased there because I'm a player. I don't know about any of the other stuff. So what do you guys think?
Um,
Mikey, you first.
I bought a MetaZoo starter box. I just bought one.
All right, all
Um,
right.
but that's because they've gone down in value by half. So I they were selling for like 14 grand at one point. I got mine for 8. So I don't think that's too
It's
bad.
not bad.
And I believe in it because I think the people that are in charge of it are going to make sure it happens. They got the right promoters. They have Steve Aoki, and they're going with the big Pokemon names, and they're going to make it into a TV show, and they're going to do this,
Oh,
and they're
they
going to do
are.
that. And for my understanding, it's a fun game to play. I don't play trading card games because I can't read well, so so I don't. But I figured, I think that's a good thing to at least have a position in case it does go ballistic. Because if a Pokemon box, a starter box, is worth $350 to $450,000, then this, which there's only were 1,500 printed, I think,
Yep.
and I don't know, maybe half are open now. Uh, there's a lot less of them than first edition Pokemon, and it's going to be by no means. I'm not saying they're going to equate each other, but I think
Mm.
it's a good thing to hold on to.
Okay.
And but it also could be something that I did sort of do a FOMO thing with. I mean, I waited till the price got low enough for me to be comfortable with it, because I wasn't spending that kind of money during the hype train, because that was an obvious hype train when you see Logan
Yeah.
Paul opening up cards that he doesn't have any idea what they are and going,
Yeah.
whoa, look at the
The
hollow.
$30,000
Oh,
Bulbasaur. Yeah.
Yeah.
oh, it's a man. That's a moth. But it does have a cool lore to it, and I like what they do with each character and how it's like kind of based off of like real wives' tales. So I think it's got a really good realistic shot. Um,
Okay. MetaZoo fan, I'll take that. That's I watch Alpha Investments. He's another YouTube channel who
Mhm.
does specifically trading card games, but
Mm.
he started with Magic, but he also now follows Weisschwarz, MetaZoo. So he does some Pokemon, and he also does Flesh and Blood. Now, Jake, you know that I'm a big Magic the Gathering guy. Mikey, I've talked to you a little bit about my fixation on Magic. So
yeah. My ears still hurt.
oh yeah. So Magic is the granddaddy of all card games, and it's here. It's outlived everything else, and it's not going anywhere. Pokemon cards, I think, they're doing all right. I haven't seen any sort of. I remember there was a Logan Paul. He came, oh, this is $1 million Charizard with his little chain thing. That was weird. And then he did the same thing with another Pokemon Illustrator card. But I haven't heard a lot from that Pokemon thing, from that Pokemon crowd as of recently. One thing that has really got me was, have either of you fellas heard of Weisschwarz, the anime cards? No, so
No, my
totally.
collecting knowledge begins and ends with comics, really.
Well, totally
Everything
unbeknownst to
else,
me.
I am nothing but a beginner and a novice.
Well, I didn't know what this was, so I started seeing on Instagram some anime cards of specific characters, mostly your waifus, and they're these pretty cards with a gold foil signature stamped on it, and I was like, what the hell are these? And I started looking kind of into it, and I talked to a couple guys on Instagram who seemed to have more of these cards than I do, but apparently it's a German card company, and they got a bunch of licensing from a bunch of different anime studios, and they started turning different anime shows into one cohesive card game. And they have these gold foil stamp signature cards that are like one in however many 150, 200, 300, or like 10 boxes or whatever. Some of them are selling for $4,000, $10,000, $20,000. Mikey, I see you there. But like,
what
I've
animes
never
are
heard
they
of them.
using?
But
Is it
like,
like what Final Fantasy? Is it like Neon Genesis? Like, are there? I assume there's not like Pokemon ones or Dragon Ball Z ones because they've got their own card games.
yeah,
Like,
there's not Pokemon or Dragon Ball Z, but like, yeah, they have two sides to the game, and this is just how I understand it. I could be wrong, and if somebody wants to comment below how I'm wrong, that's fine. But I'm under the impression that there's the Vice side and then the Schwartz side, and the Vice side is like anime video games, and then the Schwartz side is anime TV shows or anime
cool.
shows, and so they have everything from like, is it wrong to pick up girls in a dungeon? Attack on Titan,
Oh, no.
all of those shows. And then they also have some anime games, like I'm not sure if they have like Destiny OP or whatever, but they have all of these things, and then they'll have the voice actors sign the card, and that's what they hot foil stamp on, and they're just difficult and hard to find. I think there's one from Overlord, it's Albedo, and it's the signed one, and it's just like $1 billion. Like, so it's very interesting. But anyhow,
And do you
I
feel like this
digress.
one's a hype train, or
People seem to genuinely like collecting them. I think it's because they're not expensive to buy, and you can get them in both English and Japanese, and they have the same amount of rarity, but for some reason the Japanese ones sell for cheaper.
Mhm.
That might be a
That's
print
kinda
run
cool.
thing, but people seem to really like it. After this, I can certainly send you some of the Instagrams, accounts that talk about these, because I mean, it seems like a market that people really enjoy, especially you get your anime nerds, your weebs, whatever. And I mean, don't get me wrong, anime is my guilty pleasure. You'll catch me binging it till from midnight till like 3, just like laying there, nobody else is there. I'm just staring on my
Because I'm
phone.
feeling
But
FOMO now
I
with you
think that a lot of people
describing
really
it.
like it.
So, like, I don't know.
It seems
I
cool.
could buy
I
some
have
Attack on
avoided it
Titan
because
cards.
I
Why
got
not?
now, I didn't get into Vice Shorts just because I discovered Flesh and Blood, which has just been an incredibly fun game to play as opposed to like collecting. So, but that's I
And
digress.
that's been a major rabbit hole that Devin has run down over the past
Yeah,
few months.
And
he's had to deal with me.
because I know it went ballistic like a year ago.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't
Yeah.
has it continued to go up, or is it stabilized? Has it dipped a little?
I think that it dipped with the Monarch set and then came back up with the announcement of like Flesh and Blood 2.0. There was Tales of Aria and Everfest, the most two recent sets, and people have enjoyed it. I really liked them. And then they announced Flesh and Blood 2.0, and I think people are really excited for it.
Gotcha.
I haven't seen any insane numbers like the first 3 sets, but
Mhm.
I'm still enjoying the game. I think it's becoming more of a player's game. Like, there's still the rare chase cards. They're trying to fix the secondary market so that it still has that collectability, and I think they are going to do a good job just because they know what they're doing. But as far as it goes, like I'm a player more than a collector for Flesh and Blood. I really like playing the game. It's a lot of fun.
Well, that's a good sign for it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what
And
keeps Yu-Gi-Oh pumping.
yeah. Oh yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh. Oh my god, I didn't even think about it. Yu-Gi-Oh has been, and CGC just announced they're doing Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and it is
good.
just going nuts. And speaking of CGC, let's because we got off track. let's Jake, your thoughts on the video games. So CGC just finally announced they're or not just finally, but they're doing CGC video games. We've seen insane numbers for like Mario, Sonic, all that stuff. What are your thoughts? Or is that something that entices you as a new collector, or not a
It
new
is,
collector, but
as of right now, it is definitely out of my wheelhouse. Now, it is, as far as the nostalgia train goes, it's about as great as it gets, man. I see those sealed boxes inside their cases from
Oh, yeah.
Wata or whatever grading service you want to see, and it takes me right back to Christmas of '96 and open up a Nintendo 64 in my parents' living room. There's something great about that. Then it kind of stirs the same thing inside me as Pokemon does. And right now, I mean, I have so many comic goals that I won't be able to afford for years. It's going to take me a long time to get there. So before I start introducing anything else into there, I want to start knocking stuff off my list. But I mean, if someone handed me collectible video games and said take these or throw them away, of course I'd throw them up on my shelf. I'd love to have them, but I mean, it's one of those things, it's taken off so much I feel like it has been in the past 2 years that it's just
Oh, yeah.
exploded. I mean,
Most of the
anything
great
that I would want would be beyond my means by a long shot. So I mean, again, it's over my head, and I would have to do so much research to even get comfortable buying something in the collectible
Yeah.
video game market. But I think it's so cool to see all that
Yeah.
stuff from our childhood out
Oh, yeah.
there and people loving it.
Oh yeah, no, video games. Video games, I think, are faring much better than card games in terms of like secondary market collectability,
Oh, yeah.
especially like older stuff. And Mikey, I think you probably know a little something about this just with your line of work. I mean, you've seen some crazy video games going for just wild numbers.
Oh, absolutely. And
yeah.
then one of this nearly the same grade or even higher grade might sell right after it for substantially less. And then that's where kind of the FOMO kind of comes in.
Right.
And there is a lot of that. And I'm talking really on the highest end. If you're spending, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, $1 million now in certain cases, it's really a fast-paced market that has just, I mean, it's untouchable. Like what Jake was saying, like, unless you have the means for it, you are priced out already, basically.
Yeah.
And they're getting more collectible with modern games. So, you might be thinking like, oh, it's a modern game, so why, there's just a ton of them unprinted. It's similar to that of cards where the centering of everything matters. So like, the wrap around the game, how all that looks, if it's bubbly, so actual presentability comes into play, and that is the overall grade for it. So it makes it much harder to get, a perfect item. And so, if you go to Best Buy and, you want to browse for a perfect copy of the game,
well, I tell you what, I do have one collectible video game, and it's up in that shelf here. Bad with
Somewhere.
cameras, but it's up there. But it's my buddy. He works for PlayStation and is on God of War producing that. So I have a copy of the game signed by everyone in the studio on the
that's
jacket.
really cool.
So
like the OG God of War?
No, the new one, the one that was Game of the Year in 2018. But I mean, it's
cool.
tons, creative directors. I mean, you name it. Everybody who's in the office, he just set it out on the counter and said sign it, and everyone did.
That's
so cool, man.
That's about that's something that means something to me. I doubt for any amount of time it's going to be worth anything, but
I bet you're wrong.
It's a cool thing to have that I'm going to keep up there on my shelf for as long as I can. I don't have any reason to get rid of it. It means more to me than the money could that I could get from it. So
well, that's part of the point of collect. Unless you're investing, I mean, that's the point of collecting is to have something that is important to you and makes you happy, and it has a level of collectability. So I'm glad you have that. That's really cool. I'm really lucky when it comes to video games because I never thought of myself as a video game collector. I just wanted to have copies of my favorite video games from when I was a kid so that I could play them when I wanted. So before the big video game boom, before Wata, before the pandemic, when I was like, how old am I? I'm about to be 29. So like 10 years ago, 10 years ago, when I was like 19 years old, I went on eBay and I bought all of my favorite, maybe I was like 18, but I went and bought all of my favorite childhood video games complete in box. And so I just have them here now. But like, I got Pokemon Gold version, Pokemon Silver, Pokemon Crystal, Pokemon Yellow. I paid like $40 a pop, complete in box with all the pamphlets, inserts, games, new game batteries. They're all in pristine condition. But now they're like $300 to $500 for complete in box. Like I would have been priced out if I did not buy those just for myself to play.
You had those on your Instagram channel not too long ago, didn't you?
Yeah.
On your Instagram page, I think you posted some of them.
Yeah, I think there's still technically 4 games that I haven't got. It's like Mario Tennis, Hamtaro, and Pokemon Sapphire and one other. But
Yeah,
there
you
was
gotta
there
go
was a
garage
few games
sales.
that I just huh?
You have to go to garage sales or else,
I
Yeah,
know.
man.
I know.
too
All of those
expensive.
are like $400 a pop now, and I'm just like, God, I just want to play them. Like, so,
Yeah.
but like that goes to speak to the market and how insanely well it has done for itself. And
Yeah.
I am of the opinion that video games are here to stay, and they're going to just keep kind of trucking their way along
Me
into
too.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
collectordom.
Mhm.
Now, moving on, here's another good one. So since over the last 2 years, and I think you guys know where I'm heading with this, but have there been any niche collectible markets that have really come up that have stayed quiet? Because the video game boom and the Pokemon card boom really kind of shrouded a few other collectible groups that have sort of begun to really pick up steam now, such as animation cells, VHS tapes. Mikey, I know that you have been pretty passionate about VHS tapes, and Jake, I know you and I have tried to understand it, but Mikey, maybe you can enlighten and educate us on this. So how did you discover VHS? How did you get into it first off?
Well, I mean, when I was a kid,
Okay, well, yeah, fair
that's
enough.
those were the first movies I had.
Yeah.
I would take them and I'd pull the strings out, and I have fond memories of destroying them.
Oh my
So
Destroying them,
that was
perfect.
easy. That was easy. No, but I think they're a really cool collectible because I mean, they present beautifully. They're like mini movie
Mhm.
posters. They're extremely rare to find ones, first releases and that kind of stuff. So it's like the whole hunting aspect's all there, and everybody relates to movies. So, not everyone played video games, but everybody did watch movies. There's no one that didn't.
Yeah.
Right.
At least I feel really bad for them.
You
And
always
so
meet that one adult who's like, I don't watch TV, and you're like, what is wrong with you?
yeah, but
Like,
they
what do you
still like the
do?
movies. They still like no, and it's just there's something for everyone there. So, whether you like Star Wars or you like cartoons or you like, you like animes to National Geographic stuff that's really scarce and it's really a
National
cool thing.
Geographic. What?
Concert videos and there's just something for everybody. And then there's the rarity aspect, and then it's tough.
Yeah.
And they just look they look awesome because the artwork on them, they did a fantastic job. It's like, people
Yeah.
for comic books, for instance, when they were, when they buy, 50s horror and golden age books from the wartime
Mm.
eras and they're cover collecting. Same thing with VHS and beta
Yeah.
and, tapes and that kind of stuff. It's cover collecting for a lot of it. Or just, purchasing kind of your favorite movie that you feel, nostalgia for.
Right. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you, one thing you can get only with VHS, Devin, that you and I are major fandom lovers
Yeah.
is
All right.
Star Wars. You
Mm.
cannot watch the original versions anymore. If you want to get on Disney Plus and watch their crappy animation added versions of
Yeah.
stuff from horrible 1999 animation, and you watch it and wonder why in the world did they think it'd be good to add this? The only way you can watch it, I remember having them, like even when the DVDs came out, like we had the DVDs and I would watch the VHS at home because it didn't have those crappy new scenes in them. So I mean, that's another great thing, at least if anything, that you can get out of VHS.
No,
Yeah. Well,
absolutely.
so I think the last thing of Star Wars, I think it was like 2005. It was a silver box set of DVDs. That was the last time that they were released without any edits. I still have that, and I have a box set of I have a box VHS tape set of the original trilogy with the Leonard Maltin interviews. That was like my mom's, and I still have it just like chilling here. So like I have some VHS tapes. I don't really know how I came about them. I think Yaniv Stray Flexin on Instagram just kind of gave me a bunch of extra ones, and then I came across a few, and I just now have like a handful of them. So but like I know that VHSs have just gone crazy. I mean, so there's a few different. I don't actually know the names of the grading companies. There's DNA. Is that it, Mikey?
There's
Or
VHS, DNA,
okay,
IGS, and VGA, which is the VGA has been around. They've done video
yeah,
games, and they're also on
Mhm.
AFA, who do action figures and that kind of stuff.
okay,
So,
okay. Yeah.
and then there's
Now,
more on the horizon. Rewind just announced today that they're getting into it, and I mean, the expert that they have for it, I trust more than anybody. I think he's the best. And the guy who's in charge of it, Dan Allegra, is he's fantastic. His goals are great. So they came out with a great video for that. And then, I imagine just like, CGC is getting into video games, I can't imagine they're not going to try to do this.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Same thing with Collectors Universe. They own WATA, so why wouldn't they, just rearrange their case a little bit? So all of the major companies, I imagine, are going to get into it because, if they see $1 they can make, rock on.
Now, with all this talk of these new collectible industries, Jake, for you, being since you've gotten more serious about collecting since the pandemic started, are there any other collectible markets that like have really resonated with you that you really want to break into? I know you have your comic book goals and all that stuff, but is there anything where you're just like, oh, I really want to I need to start, like, let's jump in like as soon as I can? Like, what is your next thing after comics?
I don't know, man. You know me, I've dabbled in things here and there. When the Pokemon craze hit, I think that was when
that's when you and I like became friends at first. I think that's when we first started talking. Really,
yeah, that's when we talked a lot. But I think Darkness Ablaze set is when I
got in on that.
About? True. It started then, and it's blossomed into a wonderful friendship. But yeah, I dabbled in Pokemon and spent way more money than I should have, and sold it for way less money than I spent. And I've bought some Magic cards now because you, of course, have gotten me into that. But I do that more for the game playing part of it rather than the collectability of it. So I feel pretty focused with my collection right now, and I really love what I have. So I don't know at any point in the near future if I'll be trying anything else. I mean, Mikey's down here talking about VHS tapes and got me bought in, but I wouldn't know where to start even if I wanted to. But obviously, yeah.
Mikey's a great starting point. Just ask him.
Yeah. But I mean, obviously, there's a ton of stuff that's fun. Like we talked about video games. I would love to get into video games, but there's a lot of collectible markets that would be insanely fun to be a part of, but just not realistic to be able to get in on the ground floor anymore. So someone like me that's, your everyday Joe Schmo, I don't have the money to do something like that. So I'm happy, seeing it on Instagram when other people post it and staying in the hobby that, I feel like I've got a decent amount of knowledge in, and then also really appreciate.
I gotcha. That's why I think the VHS is kind of or VHS tapes in general are a good thing to get into, is because it is kind of the ground floor. Things have gone up dramatically, in the last year. You could buy almost anything for next to nothing for what it's worth now. But there's still so much potential growth and not enough knowledge in the, community, and people can go to garage sales and still find, stuff that's worth thousands of dollars for next to nothing. I have a friend who, just went to, one of those thrift stores, found a Goonies first release beta. It's worth like $10,000. Maybe it's worth more. He bought it for $32.
Wow. I love that movie.
You should come to the half price books near my place. Just like...
I offered him $7,500 for it, or I told him, or I'd hook him up to put it in auction, because I think it'd do better than that. But if you needed the quick cash, that's what I'd pay. And so that's going to go into auction at Heritage in about 2 months, a month and a half. So that's
really cool.
Oh yeah. You have an auction for your VHS tapes coming up. We'll touch on that at the end of the video. But
yeah, my point is though, is like, if you're just on eBay and you're scanning it all day long and you know what you're looking for, which is difficult, but you can ask. I mean, a lot of us are at the point now where we're just wanting to give out the information because a lot of us are sitting pretty. I've got
a bazillion. I really want to do like a VHS deep dive video, just you and me, just like an hour straight of just to educate my ass, on VHS tapes. Now, really quickly touching on the video games thing, Jake, I was talking to Rui just yesterday actually, who is Driving Forward Collectibles on Instagram, and he gave me a really interesting piece of advice when it comes to that, because we were talking about folks who are priced out of video games, whether it's sealed or complete in box. Something really interesting, if you want to get into the video game market and collector stuff and you're not worried about it being sealed, one of the things that he said to me was like, dude, if you go on eBay or whatever, people sell those things pieced out. If you want to get a Pokemon Gold version and you can't get Pokemon Gold version complete in box, there will be somebody just selling the box by itself, and then there will be somebody else selling just the pamphlets, and then somebody else just selling the cartridge, and you can piece it together and have a complete set for yourself without breaking your bank up front and buying it in pieces. And that never occurred to me as a collect, because I just had my stuff. I was just like, oh, you got to buy it all at once. But he was like, no, like if unless you're looking for like, yeah, but it's like if you're looking for like big high-end investment pieces, then yes, you got to buy it all complete in box all at once. It's got to be, all perfect. But like if you just want it, man, you can piece it out and take your time with it. So I just thought that was a cool piece of advice.
That is. I mean, it definitely breaks from the general understanding that we have as comic collectors, right? That if you buy a book that has a bunch of pages married from other books, if you send it to get graded, no one's gonna want it because it's restored or qualified or whatever, and it devalues it. But that's cool that you can do something like that and still have something that's of value, and something that you appreciate too.
I have never really minded restored comic. I know some people have like a huge issue with it. And I do like that CGC has that conserved label, and I know that some people also find that controversial, but I don't mind them so much. It really kind of depends on what was done to the book, and like like if for me personally, if it's like if I have an Action Comics #1 with a married page, I don't care. Give it to me. Thank you. Like, but like if there was a well, and you guys, I swear to God, this was a meme buy from some millionaire who just has too much money and time on their hands, but they spent $7,000 on that little snippet from like the top corner of the
I thought that was a good deal.
Remember that. Good deal.
I thought it was a good deal.
To each their own. I just thought it was silly. It was so goofy to me. Like I was just like, what? Why?
Honestly, if I could buy it, I would have. I wasn't paying attention that auction day. I thought it was going to go for over 10 grand. I would have paid $7 for it.
Oh my gosh. That was one of the most interesting things.
There's too many crazy things like that. I mean, Bad Idea Comics came out with an invisible book, and people are paying over 10 grand for it.
We were playing with that at Emerald City.
Yeah, Yaniv had bought it off of the
I bought one for $1,000, and that should have been crazy. And now I don't know how much they're going for. There's only like 36 of them, I guess. But like,
so CGC just made 36 empty slabs.
No, they're not empty. They're not empty. They have a
clear piece of plastic in it,
made out of like cellulose or something with a staple in it, and they're all in different grades. I think there's like 4 9/8, and then there's one of every other grade.
Okay.
And it's like a really funny label. It's like the first disappearance.
God, get out.
No, I mean, it was really a funny thing.
No, it's great. That's hilarious.
$10,000 joke or a $15,000 joke or whatever they're selling for.
Oh, lordy lord. Okay. All right. Moving.
But what would you rather have, that or the one from Action 1?
Neither. I would save my money.
I would save my money. That's great.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. I'd say to each their own, and if it makes somebody happy, then let I'm still gonna give my friends a hard time about it if they buy something I think is silly, but I want them to be happy. So whoever bought it, if they're happy and satisfied with it, then I'm really happy for them.
Hit me up, Mikey Comics. I will buy your Action 1 #1.
That man,
message that exactly what you paid. I'll bail you out.
Yeah.
Now, before we move, I want to talk about animation cells. But before we do talk about animation cells, Mikey, having some cool VHS tapes, do you have some cool stuff that you kind of want to show off a little bit? I'm curious to see what some of the best tapes are, going for, like, what are some of the rarest things? I'm very curious.
The rarest things is this shelf right here, basically. And it's like all of these are really obscure horror tapes. And they've just these have always been collectible, and that's what initially, kind of started the VHS collecting was, really kind of the horror genre. And these have always been pricey. Open copies have been, a few $100, and I've been managing to find, sealed ones. So cool. I've been going ballistic trying to get ones like Nail Gun Massacre.
This is
$900 open. So I got a sealed one. Never seen another. Chopping Mall. That's a few $100 open.
Chopping Mall.
Shopping mall. Great
These names,
art on
man.
it. I've got another copy that's actually it's signed by the artist of the work, is Corey Wolf, and then Maniac, which was people absolutely love this movie if you're a horror collector, and I mean they're rare as can be. So it's gonna be cool to see where that goes. Now, where everyone's kind of speculating on VHS is more mainstream stuff, and that's like Star Wars, Back to the Future, Ghostbusters,
Right.
Karate Kid, Dune, all of Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark, all that kind of stuff, and those have really gone insane. 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, you could have bought a first release Star Wars for $1,000, and now it's six figures. So
Jeez.
Wow.
yeah, exactly. And there's like not many known of those. There's only like 3 or 4 of those known. I've got a third release Star Wars. It's second release kind of. Yeah, it's second release Star Wars.
It's second release, Jake.
I got it right here. And there's
That's incredible.
4 or 5 of these known. Bought it out of a guy's Star Wars collection. So that's almost as good as it gets. That's almost there.
So close. Okay.
So
crazy.
that thing's nuts. And then first release Back to the Future right there.
Very cool.
Not many of those are going to go ballistic.
Is that the one that I had to deliver to you at Emerald City?
Yeah, I was gonna say, is that the one that I carried around in my backpack for you for a little while?
I don't remember what that was. Something. Oh, was it Space Jam slip?
Space
Yeah,
Jam.
Space Jam.
That's what it was. Space Jam.
And that's another thing. There's extra collectabilities, because there's rarer variants of the tapes. So like Space Jam isn't a rare tape, but like in a slipcase form, like in a box like this, not the big puffy clamshell that's ugly. That thing's rare, and that's going to be a really cool one. When you got Michael Jordan and you got all the Looney Tunes and all that people love. That's going to be a really great piece. And those are, you can get lucky and find one of those on eBay. Someone just saw it, posted it for $50 or something. But, realistically, that tape's probably worth $1,000, $1,500 or something like that.
Wow. Okay.
And you really still get very lucky like that on eBay constantly. Things sell like that all the time. And I mean, here's an example of a graded VHS tape. Here's another Star Wars. This is the third release of Star Wars. Their third commercial release, because there was also a library release, which was the first one. And this is the first slipcase version of it. And
Interesting.
2 of these have sold for, in worse condition, for an average of $30,000. So
wow. Okay. So the video game market is really, really starting to heat up. And since we're showing cool stuff off, before I move into animation sales, Jake, tell me, since you started collecting more seriously, what are some of the best pieces you've picked up for your comic collection? Let's hear about some of the coolest things that you've gotten for yourself.
Oh man, well the absolute coolest piece that I got, I think both of you guys were part of me getting this book, and it's back over my shoulder. Kind of move my head out of the way. You can kind of see it
Avengers
next
4?
to, yeah, it's an Avengers 4 signed by Stan Lee.
Let's go.
And since I started collecting in 2020 and Stan passed in 2018, I never had the opportunity to meet him. So that is, in and of itself, one of the coolest things to me that I own, because I'm never going to have the opportunity to walk in front of Stan and put a comic book in front of him and ask him to sign it, so that's the only way I can own something like that. And I got it right after Emerald City Comic-Con in 2021, this last year. But I mean, the stuff that I love the most is my Batman collection, and that's my other shelf. And I've got one behind me, and one's over here. And a lot of first appearances or Silver Age appearances and stuff like that I love owning. But I did pick up my first Golden Age Batman book off of a Comic Link auction not too long ago.
Christmas cover.
And it's a Christmas cover. I found out about Christmas covers this year. Not necessarily found out about them, but really learned about them. And, the 2 big Batman ones I feel like are 27 and 33, and this is number 45. And I just, I ran into it on a Comic Link auction and in March. And so no one was thinking about Christmas comics. I think I got that thing for like $300, and it's CBCS. I'm a CBCS collector. We can go down the rabbit hole of who has what preferred
Gotta have like a
grading
battle
service.
it down. Like we'll get like Steve Borak and like Matt Nelson and just like
duke it out.
Just let him go to town.
Let them
but yeah, I mean, I grabbed this book because it's a Christmas cover. I got it for a great deal because it was off season. You know, around Christmas time, it's impossible to grab books for a reasonable price because it's Christmas and everyone wants a Christmas cover, right? So I got a good deal on it and got it in CBCS, which for my personal collection, that's what I have. So, and it was my first
the
Golden Age
undiscovered
Batman.
market Christmas covers.
Yeah, exactly. It's gonna take off. Just you want? No, I'm just kidding. No one's gonna care about those for a while, I'm sure.
Well, but I don't know, 8 months.
Yeah,
give it 8 months.
It'll surge in November, and then it'll die off, and then you can get a good copy in March again. But yeah, I mean that's the majority of the things that I've gotten. I don't have anything that's crazy insane in value. I think that Captain America book's worth a little over $1,000 depending on what people value a Stan Sig at, maybe $2. But
that book's gone up a lot since you bought it.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm pretty happy with what I have, even though none of it's crazy, insane in monetary value, because it all means something to me, right? Like there's a reason behind every book that I buy. I mean, one of my favorite books that I own is a V for Vendetta #1 and a 9.8, and it's not a crazy. You can get it for $150 anytime. Like you hop on eBay, there's probably 10 copies on there going for less than that, but it means something to me because it's a movie that I loved, and it was one of the first comics that I picked up, and one of the first ones I got graded, and I love it, and everything that I have has that sort of sentimental value to me. Yeah, exactly. I say that on my Instagram page every time I post something. The very last thing I say is collect what you love, and you'll be the happiest collector in the world. And that's what it's really about. That's what I've made it about for me. Is just grabbing things that I enjoy, regardless of the value. If it's crazy expensive, I save up for it and get it because it means something to me, not because I think it's going to the moon or whatever. But that's really in my journey. All that I've got is stuff that just matters to me. Nothing that's been a crazy huge pickup that's monumental, and someone's gonna walk in and go, "Oh my God, I can't believe you own that." But everything has a story, and everything means something to me.
Well, I mean, the Avengers 4 is pretty bad. I mean, I was like, oh my God, I'm not even a Marvel guy, but I was like, I want one. Shoot, like,
yeah.
So I think those are really, I mean, like things like that are really cool. And yes, collect what you love, but it's and it's okay to do both collecting and investing. I mean, some of my books, like my biggest, I think the one that I'm the most grateful for, and I got this because I wanted it for my personal collection, but I also knew that it was an expensive book, was my Marvel Family #1. It's a CGC 2.5, and it's just for people who are watching. It's the first appearance of Black Adam, 1945. Very difficult to find book, and I bought it in 2018 for like $2,000, like maybe just a little over $2,000. What is that sitting at now? Is like it is what, tripled, quadrupled almost, like, and and I mean, like, I knew that
it price to pay in 2018 even for it, but now I mean that'd be dirt cheap. I'll buy them all day long for that.
Yeah.
Well, and I paid a little extra for it because I wanted it, and also like I knew in my head I was like, this will probably go up over time, but I was like, if I want it, I should probably pull the trigger on it now and not have that like could have bought it remorse later. So I'm really glad that I did, because the pandemic definitely made the collectibles industry just. Now, speaking of that, let's talk about something else that I've found a lot of personal joy in. Animation cells. I love animation cells, and it has been very quiet over the last couple years, kind of working its way up slowly in little pockets of the communities here or there, and now you have them selling for 5-6 digits on certain ones. And I mean, like, let's talk about that. Jake, I think you have one animation cell. I have
one.
6, and Mikey, you have a whole portfolio. So let's
few portfolios.
A few. Well, let's Jake, may I start with your opinion, sir? What are your thoughts on animation cells?
I think they are super cool. And again, it's a market that I don't understand. Like the one that I have, it means a lot to me because it's something that came from you. You sent it to me for my birthday this past year, and so that's the kind of thing that's not ever going to leave my collection. But the art on it is insane, and just knowing the story behind it and how what it means toward the show that it's part of is pretty cool. But surprisingly enough, I may be the only nerd that can say this, but I didn't really grow up watching anime, and
How dare you?
a lot
Get
of
off this podcast. Leave.
and a lot of the shows I wasn't even allowed to watch because I grew up in a really conservative home, and there were things that I wasn't allowed to watch just because there was magic or whatever in it. And now I don't care, and my parents don't care now either. But things like Dragon Ball Z, I didn't grow up watching. I dabbled here and there in Naruto as my friends did and tried to watch it with them, but never really got too into any of the anime side of it. Even with Pokemon, I collected the cards, never really watched the movies or the show. So it's something that I probably wouldn't know a big time piece if I did get it, but one that you grabbed, I won't spoil it too much, but you grabbed a pretty cool piece when we were in Emerald City Comic Con of Batman Beyond, and that one was pretty cool. And so something like that, I can understand a little better. But the other ones, I mean, I love looking at them; they're super cool, and knowing that they are original pieces of art is really, really neat. But again, like a lot of other collectible hobbies, I don't have much knowledge on them other than knowing that there's value there, that a lot of people enjoy them, and that there's some of them that are really cool and mean a lot to a lot of people.
Oh yeah, no, I think one of the coolest things about animation cells is that they are all essentially one of a kind. They're all like they're one of one. Like I know in some older TV shows they reused. That was loud. they reused different animation cells the same animation cells for several different like scenes or whatever. So there's often maybe just one or two of something created, and then that's it. There's no more. So there's really just one of one. And Mikey, I think you probably know that better than anybody, that how valuable and rare these things are, especially if you get just the right one, and how much just like the movement of a foot can make a difference in like price. So do you want to enlighten us a little bit about?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I own, I owned, because I sold it. But it's part of the reason why I sold for so much. I put it in heritage auctions, and it was an animation cell of Goku and Trunks, where Vegeta's having this nightmare because they are Super Saiyans and he's not strong enough yet, and his pride's beat and blah blah blah. It's really a sad moment for him. And they use this exact same frame in the Dragon Ball card game. So this shot that I owned was also, a fantastic image for the show, and then also used as it's called a Hankin when it's used as a piece of production material, and it was also used for the card, the exact same image. And you figure that out by kind of watching it frame by frame. And my buddy and I who co-owned it, we went through the scene of it and did stop frame by frame over the 18 images that make up this scene, and we figured out, okay, ours is the exact perfect frame that is then transitioned into this card, and it sold for over 10 grand. And so that was cool, because we kind of quick flipped it, and more than doubled our money, and so that was neat. And it's a piece that I would have liked to hold on to, but at the same time, when you really believe in a hobby, you kind of want to help build it. And I wanted there to be larger pieces in these mainstream auctions, so that more eyes would come onto the scene. So that was fine for me to sacrifice, and I have so many more of them. So and that fit my collection better. And that's what I mostly am. Is I'm a Dragon Ball nerd when it comes to animation cells, but I also have other animes, like I try to buy Studio Ghibli stuff, but that's usually untouchable. So like Princess Mononoke and Totoro and Nausicaa and all that kind of stuff. That's really hard to get by Miyazaki.
I remember once upon a time I was like, oh, I want a Studio Ghibli animation cell. Let me just look it up. Never mind.
Yeah, I own a couple, but I own one really great one, and I can't afford to keep it, so it's about to go to auction. But I have it right here.
All right, let's see it. Oh, it's not.
Oh wow.
Oh, that's so cool.
Right there from
that's not go right. Yep. Nope.
All right, from Princess Mononoke. This is like, one of the climactic scenes when she's trying to stop the boar god from being killed really by all the people. So it's right towards the end of the movie. 4 layers,
Oh, yeah.
complete master setup. It's
That's
awesome.
insane. And that
So
is like a
that's
house for
awesome
me,
to see
right?
what that
Like,
goes for.
Yeah.
And I'd love to keep it because I'm a big fan of the movie, but it doesn't make fiscal sense for me to keep it.
Yeah.
So so those things you gotta sell them.
yeah, I feel that.
And it
Princess
sucks. I
Mononoke,
think they're only
man.
going up in value, but then you take that money, you reinvest it into other things, and you keep the stuff you like the most, and you sell the stuff that you can live without, and you just keep pushing.
Yeah.
But that's going to be cool to see when that thing goes off. That's going to go to auction. I think it's in August. So that's going to be cool. And then I'm also been buying, Neon Genesis and Astro Boy and
Ooh,
Pokemon.
Astro Boy, that's cool.
That really has been totally overlooked because of the cards.
Mhm.
A lot of people, resonate with the show equally to the cards, or even more so in some cases. But it really depends.
Are Pokemon cells like wildly expensive, or are they relatively
No,
affordable?
I mean, compared to the cards, they're dirt cheap. You
Really?
get a first release, you get a first edition Charizard in 10. It's 350 grand. You can get a Charizard cell for. I know of only one that's sold recently. I think the guy paid $35,000 for it, and it's badass. And I think it was a good buy because you never see them.
Yeah.
But I mean, that being said, it's expensive. It's still expensive.
$35,000 for like a normal person.
Relatively,
Yeah.
relatively, it's a lot cheaper. Now that being said, you can get frames from less loved characters like Charizard, which is always going to be king, for substantially less. You just have to search, and I go on Japanese websites and buy on proxy servers and do all that kind of stuff to
I'm gonna have to like get one of those VPN
source
things to
these
start
items.
looking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
VPN.
I would love to own one Pokemon cell that had my favorite. My 2 favorite Pokemon are Celebi and Cyndaquil, and I would love to have a cell with one of those 2 characters on it. And I don't think they're necessary. I know
You're not
Typhlosion
going
is
to
really
get
popular.
Celebi. You're
Huh?
not going to get Celebi.
No?
There's no
Oh, no.
cells. There's no cells. Maybe there's drawings.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Celebi's
actually
too
another
late.
thing. I actually learned this from Yaniv a little bit ago, but apparently, so there was a point in time where animation was transitioning out of hand painted cells into just line work, and then they were being digitized. So
Yes.
are there? So I'm assuming there might be some Pokemon things that are just line work, right?
Yeah, there's got to be.
Yeah.
And that Pokemon cells I really don't see very often. And I am looking for cells every day, so they feel scarce, or at least they've been hoarded. You'd think because it's a more recent show that there would be more of them. Because another thing with animation cells is that they degrade if they are in bad. I mean, they degrade. Period. Like most things do, like comic books do over time. But if they're stored incorrectly, they degrade fast, and they get this thing called vinegar syndrome, and you can smell them from across the room, and they wrinkle up, and the paint melts. It looks awful. So from shows from the 80s or earlier, like if you get Black and White Astro Boys, those are really tough. And they get really rare because you think about a show, and you have to do every dot frame of animation. So it sounds like there's a ton of them. I don't know how many cells make up a 30-minute episode, but it's a lot of them. But think of how they were stored, and they were just thrown away. In a lot of cases, like the production houses, they weren't going to waste anything, so they would wipe them clean, and then they would repaint them.
They weren't meant to be collectible. They were meant to just make the
Yeah.
show and then just get thrown away because they weren't meant to be collectible.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's funny. So when the first animation cells I bought before I even had a comic book Instagram. I bought 2 animation cells from Ed, Edd n Eddy, but it's because Ed, Edd n Eddy was my favorite TV show as a kid, and I just wanted to have something collectible from the show, but there wasn't really any collectibles made for Ed, Edd n Eddy, so I just looked up the cells. I bought them each for like $100, like maybe $80, like And now I can't afford any other NA cells, so let's not talk about it. Now, here's another question for you, Mikey. Have you seen? Is there more of a demand for anime animation cells or American cartoon animation cells? Because I know that
So
those are two.
definitely. So there's been to say that animation art collecting was like under the radar. It wasn't. It was just under the radar here. So overseas, it was not under the radar. There have been longtime collectors for decades, in Europe and Japan, of course, and South America and Germany and all over the world, Russia, everywhere. There have been tons and tons of foreign buyers. And now that it's kind of becoming, it's kind of making its way through the States, now we're recognizing it. So there has been no shortage of collecting for these. So definitely anime has always been more expensive than US shows. That being said, there is some shift that's happening, and the first public sale of an animation cell just sold in Heritage Auctions for over $100,000. It was $150,000 or 100 and something like that. It was the first appearance of Harley Quinn, and
wow, holy cow! Oh, I think I saw that actually. I think I saw somebody post about that.
I mean, I bid 50 grand on it. I was, and I thought I had a chance because like the auction started at $12,000. And I was like, okay, all right. I was like figuring out what I was going to bid the day before and, all that. And then, the auction starts and in a second it's at 50 grand. I'm like, I'm out.
Well,
I'm
out the window.
12,000 to 50,000 in a second. And then it just keeps going. And I just kept going and ended around 50, 150. And I think it was a great buy because I mean it's Harley Quinn, who's arguably the most famous person and most famous female in all of comic bookdom. So I think
that is a fair and reasonable,
fantastic purchase. And her first appearance was not in a comic book. Her first appearance was in the Batman animated TV show, which is critically acclaimed and awesome. So like I mean that piece was killer.
So that cell was technically her first appearance.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Her first appearance because it was a Hankin because it was used as an advertisement for the show, and it's an awesome piece with Batman, the Joker, and Harley Quinn in the background holding her gun. It's really really sweet.
Wow! So that came out before the episode even aired. Wow! Holy cow!
Yeah, so that's like before the episode aired, and then the piece was then used on magnets and posters and all sorts of stuff. So it's a pretty iconic image, even though it was technically not in the show, but it was an advertisement for the show.
So you got to get really into the meta of the whole thing, but that's cool though, man. That's like these are things that I never would have known unless you told me. So that's awesome.
And historically, for animation collectors in the US, it's always been Disney, Mickey Mouse and that kind of stuff. And there have been private sales that I've heard of that are higher, but I mean private sales you never really know.
I think on our Discord we had a Mickey Mouse go for a few $1,000s between a couple guys. So
if you have a Steamboat Willie just drawing, that's a few $1,000s, like a bad one, like one that's just like not even complete, like just a bad one's like a few grand. So like if you had an animation cell that was that old, like which is almost all of those have been deteriorated or thrown out or just gone, like that's a really tough thing to get and really something really special. And so like the earliest Mickey that I've ever seen was like 1930. I don't know if 1934. And I don't know exactly when Steamboat Willie, when Mickey Mouse was Steamboat Willie, but it was a little bit before that. So that's tough.
Yeah, wow.
I mean, U.S. animation has also always been really heavily collected, but more of the old-timey stuff. And that stuff really hasn't appreciated to the same degree as other collectibles have. That being said, it is worth more than it has been. It's just, it's kind of always been expensive to get, a piece from Sleeping Beauty or a piece from, Lady and the Tramp, Mermaid or that kind of thing. It's always been expensive. Tens of thousands of dollars for good ones, but never really six figures, which is where I think there's always potential. If you can go into any collectible that you can recognize as cool, and the best item is like 100 grand, that is a cheap collectible. Because if you look at comic books, the best item, I don't know what the nicest action one would sell for now. Maybe it's $100 million. Like we don't know. 6.5 sold for 3 point something. So I mean,
well, there's that one that came out of like Pristine Comics, like back in like 2015, that was like a 9.2 or something like that, and
I think
then it went for 3 million.
8.5 or 9.0. And it sold for 3 point something million bucks, or maybe it sold for $2 million then, and then then it's resold now. Now the record for one was a or maybe it is still, was for the 8.5 that sold less than a year ago for 3 point, I don't know,
3.25 or something like that.
3.4 million
something
bucks.
insane.
And that was such a bargain. That book's worth $5 or $10 million easy.
God.
That when I heard that sale happened, I thought that was even cheap then. I was like, if I heard about it, not that I can afford it, but I'd find someone who could.
Some of these numbers that I hear sometimes just remind me, like some of the insane numbers that it just reminds me, like, whoo, okay, reel it in.
Well, yeah, I mean, like the Superman one that just went from the Mile High collection for 5.3 million. That's not even Superman's first appearance. It's just his first title, and so like Lord knows what a action one
in reprints except for one page. But it's such a historic book, and
that's wild.
It's beautiful. It's just a beautiful copy.
God. Now,
beautiful looking book. But yeah, for animation art, it is. I think it's so cheap, and there's so much room for it to grow. And there've been 6-figure sales of Miyazaki stuff, Studio Ghibli, but almost. I mean, none for Dragon Ball, none for, really, some of the most expensive media franchises of all time, none for Pokemon. So there's definitely room there. And especially if you get stuff from your favorite episodes of them. And your favorite scenes, and you get them with matching backgrounds and effect layers, and you get the drawings, or you get the rough drawings that are actually done by the key animators, which are called Gengas. Those are really, really cool. And it's just, I mean, there's a lot of growth and a lot to explore there. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, now we're just a little bit over that hour mark, so I want to wrap up. I have a couple extra questions for both of you, starting with you, Jake, and then we'll kind of finish up. But for you, Jake, now that you've really kind of gotten to know the comic book community and the collectibles community and industry over the last couple of years, what are some of your favorite parts about just the collectibles industry and community that you've really kind of taken to heart? What makes you happy? What's your favorite parts of it?
God, it's the people, man. That's the one thing, when I started collecting comics, I thought, it'd be cool to document where I came from by starting an Instagram page. And man, I can't tell you the amount of wonderful conversations that I've had with people, the amount of friendships that I've made. I mean, I went to one con and walked away with knowing you two and Yaniv and Rob and Tom and Jeff. And I mean, you can name them all, and everyone is just, there's always exceptions, but everyone wants the best for everybody. If you have a collecting goal, they want to help you get there. If you're looking for a book, they want to help you find it. And they want to hear what's important to you and why. And it's been like that since the beginning, since I've been doing it. And that was one of the things that kept me in it at the beginning, because I wasn't collecting anything important at the beginning. When I started collecting, I didn't feel like I had any sort of knowledge to be able to buy something expensive, because I didn't want to, think I was getting a good book and then $600 later find out I bought something worth 100, So, the community is what kept me in it then. And it was just getting to have genuine conversations with people and get to know people who just wanted the best for you and wanted you to be able to succeed at accomplishing goals that you set for yourself. And so that to me is really been the best part of the community, or just the whole comicdom in general, going to shows, meeting people, and no one's an asshole, like, I mean, there are people out there that are, but for the most part, if you talk to someone and you're just, just want to chat about comic books, they'll talk to you about it, and they'll be kind, and I mean, in the little bit that I dabbled in Pokemon collecting, it's not that way there. People people are not that way in every collectible community, and so I've really appreciated that about comics because it's made it so much more fun to be able to do it. It almost feels like alongside other people
Yeah.
that want the best for you as well.
That's true. I think that of all the different collectible markets, now there are some that I don't know. Like I'm not a part of the VHS market, for example. So I don't know anybody outside of Mikey
Yeah.
or like Yaniv who collect VHS tapes. But like in the collectible markets that I do have experience in, I think comic books is the best in terms of people. I mean, I have met some lifelong friends in the comic books community. I've met you two through comic books, and I like to think of both of you guys as really good friends. I mean, Mikey, you're impossible to get a hold of sometimes, but whenever we talk, we have a great fucking time. But you're a busy fellow, and that's okay. Jake, I talk to you every freaking day.
Yeah, just about.
So yeah, and I mean, like, and that's what even Rob, when he's grumpy Rob, he's still just a big freaking teddy bear. That guy,
Yeah.
like he'll tell me to go fuck myself, but he'll buy me lunch 10 minutes later.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I absolutely adore the people in the comic book community. I mean, it is some of the best people that I know. And I wouldn't have it any other way. And and you are right. There are certainly other communities where the people are not as welcoming. There are some that are really exclusive and like, and just, there's a lot of greed that kind of takes over in certain circles that just makes certain things difficult to enjoy collecting. But comic books is not like that. I've never met anybody in comic books where I was like, wow, that guy was a dick. Like, I don't.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen.
I just and I know they're out there, right? They've got to be, but I haven't ever run into anybody that's that way. And and if it's great because everyone else, for the most part, isn't that way. And so when someone is, we don't really give them the time of day. They can go be a dick to somebody else. That's not my problem. If they want to raise hell
1000%.
doing something that no one really cares what they have to say, but they're going to be the loudest voice that they can be about it. Just like, go ahead, man. We're going to hang out over here. Do our own
You do
thing.
Glen Coco. I feel like
Exactly.
now, Mikey, for
I
you.
attest to that because I go to card shows and I've got card friends and I've got animation cell friends and I've got video game friends and I've got all different collectibles. Comics wins. Absolutely, it just generates the nicest people. People who actually like really care about the hobby and the health of it and the material that they have, and there's not all this like money grubbingness that you see in other hobbies or coveted kind of dickiness
like my precious sort of
and, and all of that. It's really a really welcoming place, which has been just awesome. I absolutely love the comic community, and it's just, I mean, and they're dicks, but so what? There's gonna be them everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's just a fantastic space and welcoming, and everyone just wants the best for you.
I think one of the other communities that I've really grown to love is the Magic the Gathering community. There is a massive chasm of difference between Magic the Gathering and other collectible card games. Magic the Gathering, specifically because it's been around for so long, because the card game has such a deep history and lore, it just has a very different vibe than other newer collectible card games. Now, I don't know anybody who does MetaZoo. I know a few people who do Flesh and Blood, but like I'm not deep and ingrained enough to like talk about it. I know a lot of Pokemon people, and most of the Pokemon people I know are really good, but there definitely are a bunch of jackasses that I tend to stay away from. But Magic, I mean, my local game store in my city here, it's called Mox. I'm there 3-4 days a week. The employees there are like, the homies. Like I'm on a first name basis with all of them. They know me every time I come in. Heck, I have some of them like as friends on Instagram, and we talk cards and Magic and deck building all the time outside of, because it's just everybody just wants to build decks and have fun and like play each other. That's the whole thing with Magic. So I love the Magic community, and I play 3-4 times a week at this point. So just a shout out if any of my Mox friends are watching. Hi. Now for you, Mikey, now we've touched on how video games and Pokemon cards exploded at the beginning of the pandemic, and we talked a little bit about VHS tapes and animation cells kind of creeping their way up behind video games and Pokemon cards, and now they're really starting to get some recognition. do you, with all of your insider knowledge, do you know of any other niche collectible markets that have just stayed really quiet, that are slowly working their gears in the background that nobody has thought of yet? Do you got any tips for us?
Well, I mean, I guess DVDs.
Okay.
No, like I know movie posters, for instance.
Mm.
Those have, I mean, those have been creeping up, but not to the same degree. And kind of the issue with movie posters is kind of their size.
Hmm.
But they are so cool. I love
Huge,
movie
yeah.
posters. And another one, I mean, it hasn't been overlooked, but it hasn't, it doesn't get talked about really too much outside of the community, is, original comic art and original art in
Mm.
general.
Mhm.
It is, for that kind of stuff, it has gone to the moon, but
Yep.
it's not, you don't see people talking about it as much. You see people, you just see the prices paid. But
True.
it's across the board. I mean, people are, there's more people getting into it, and that's another thing that you need a lot of knowledge though for. You need to know about
Oh
the
yeah.
artist, you need to know how to look it
The
up, you need to know where it's from,
I'm
the key moment, all that.
I'm
Yep.
surprised that original comic art isn't like much more at the forefront. I'm a little bummed out. So there's actually so you guys know I'm a big Star Wars fan. The very first appearance of Darth Revan in comics was in like Star Wars The Old Republic, like number 9. It was like page
Mhm.
27 or something like that. And the guy who did the art for it was selling his pages for $250. And I reached out to him, and I missed the original page of the first appearance of Darth Revan by like 2 weeks. I have never been. Oh my god, I
Mm.
still haven't gotten over it, and it's been like a year and a half, 2 years since I reached. Like, I'm still not over it because the book alone in a 9.8 is now a couple $1,000s,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, that one's
so
insane.
now I'm never going to see that art again. I think I have one other cool piece I can show you guys. So here's a fun one in terms of original art. So let me see if I can make sure that. So this is an original page from Star Wars Dark Times #1. So the artist Doug Wheatley, I met him at Rose City Comic Con back in like 2017, and this was my favorite Star Wars book or Star Wars series. I totally fangirled when I saw him, and he started to do a commission for me that he never finished, and so we kept in touch over like a year and a half, and he never finished the commission because of whatever reason. So as an apology, he sent me this original page. This is page 6 from issue 1, the only copy ever, as an apology for never getting to finish it. But what's fun about it is so I guess this was also George Lucas's favorite Star Wars series. So he bought all of the
Mm.
original art except for a handful of pages, and he has first refusal on everything. So outside of Doug Wheatley and George Lucas, I'm the only person who owns original art from the series,
That's
bar
really
none.
cool.
Pretty
So
cool.
That's
Pretty
yeah,
awesome.
I original comic art is so cool, and I think it's so undervalued. Have you guys paid attention to Mike Mignola, by the way, like the Hellboy artist?
Yeah,
So
but he's not undervalued. Not
no,
well. Maybe he is. I don't know, but his stuff's expensive. Is my
his stuff
point.
is, but like it like so like there's a Hellboy behind me. I don't know if you can see it, but like I got that in 2018 for like $200, and now he does that stuff and he sells it all on his eBay page, and now it's like $800 for just a doodle. So I'm
That's
hoping.
crazy.
Yeah,
I digress.
I just bought a Hellboy. I guess his new series for Hellboy is his cover. He's doing, I guess, eBay charity auctions, and I got the cover of
Mm-hmm.
number 2, or little, and it's a little Hellboy, and I was like, like
Oh, that's
$3,500
wild though.
just for that. I mean,
That's crazy.
it's a brand new
That
series.
is
I thought it was a
crazy.
really good price for a Mignola piece, because I mean, his stuff sells for so much.
Oh yeah, it's wild. I'm very lucky to have that. Now, we're at about an hour and 20 minutes, so I am going to start to wrap up here. Jake, I'm going to talk to Mike here for a minute and have him talk to me about his upcoming auction. But dude, I'm going to talk to you in a few minutes. I appreciate you really taking the time out of your evening down in Texas to be here and talk to me, man. You're my bro, so I appreciate you, and I'll have you on again. All right.
Of course, I appreciate it. Glad to be here, man. This was fun.
Thank you. And for everybody who doesn't know, please follow my friend Jake here on Instagram. I believe it's at J_Buff Comics. Is that correct?
That's it. That's
That's it.
me.
So
I don't
J Buff
post all that
Comics.
often anymore because I'm not
Yeah.
picking up spec books like I used to. But when I get stuff back from CBCS, it pops
When
right
he
up on the
posts, he posts.
page.
It's some good shit. So thank you, Jake. I'll talk to you in a few minutes. All right, buddy.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. All righty. Mikey, my friend.
Yo.
So before we end up here, you have an auction that begins on May 20th, correct? For VHS, that's when
Yeah,
it
that's
opens.
when bidding opens up for. I've been working closely with Heritage and with their VHS department that they've recently started, and their first mainstream auction is going to be auction. The bidding opens on May 20th. I can't exactly remember when the day the auction starts. It's roughly 3 weeks after that,
Okay.
and it's going to be sweet. There's already been some pretty decent VHS sales, either through Golden Auctions, Comic Link, Comic Connect, but none of them hold a candle to this sale.
Okay.
It's going to be hopefully. It's hopefully going to be $1 million sale, with
Well,
first
yeah,
releases
shit.
of Star Wars and Back to the Future. And actually, the Back to the Future is the coolest one because it's Tom Wilson's copy of Back to the Future, who is Biff from Back to the Future.
Oh,
So
cool.
it's his original copy, still sealed with a director's note. Back to the Future 1, 2, 3, and his trilogy box, all with director's notes, directly from him. So that's going to be nuts to see what that brings.
I'm very curious. Yeah, that's going to be a big number. Okay.
Yeah, that's going to be really cool. The sale is just, it's unparalleled to what the other ones have been. Bunch of first release rare stuff from, from Poltergeist to, I don't even have stuff off the top of my head. I'm sorry, but
all the cool stuff, all the things.
Yeah, all sorts of things like that Goonies beta that I talked about. And that's another thing. There's also a section full of Betamax that there hasn't really been that for in the prior auctions. And like really good ones from Beverly Hills Cop to all of the Star Trek movies and the earliest releases of them, and which are scarce to say the least.
Okay.
And it's going to be really, really cool to see how that unfolds, because there's been really substantial sales for things like Gremlins and stuff like that have been later releases, stuff that you can find them on eBay right now for $100-$200, and then they'll sell in a mainstream auction graded for $1,600. So now to see stuff that's you can't buy it, period. It's just not out there. To see what that brings is going to be really, really cool.
That's very exciting. So you guys heard it here first. It's going to be starting up on May 20th for bidding, and the auction will roughly end about 3 weeks after that. Mike, I'm going to have you back on again for a Betamax VHS tape deep dive coming here soon. We'll have some more info.
And I'll have lots ready to talk about and things like that. And beautiful. There's a great horror section, which there hasn't been one yet. So it's going to be cool to see where those go. And because that's always been that was the genesis really of VHS. Well, the genesis was the very, very start, but where people have been historically doing it is the horror genre. So it's cool.
All right. And for the YouTube viewers, if you guys want updates on this, you can also follow Mikey on Instagram. It's My Key Comics, like it's mine, My Key Comics. So make sure you drop him a follow. Mikey, I'm going to get you out of here, and I'm going to say bye to these folks, and then we'll chat after. All right.
Good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here, man. I appreciate you 1,000. No, I appreciate you 3,000.
Woo!
All right. Hang tight. 1 second here. All right, folks, you guys heard it. We talked about a whole bunch of stuff. I hope that was a good first video back. I do appreciate all of you guys being here. I want you all to know, if you want to continue the conversation, I've actually been running a Discord with my good friend Nate. You can also find him at Kihei Collectibles on Instagram. Kihei as in Kihei, Hawaii. But find us on Discord. You can follow our Instagram at Collectors Room. It's called The Collectors Room. There's an invite link in the description in the bio, and you can join the Discord from there if you want to keep the conversation going. We have plenty of international comic book collectors, so there's always some form of conversation going there. We talk about more than just comics. We talk about action figures, video games, trading cards, original artwork, pulp magazines. There is a VHS tape section as well. So there's a ton going on there. If you're looking to learn, make sure that you join that by following our Instagram and then clicking the link in the bio. But outside of that, that was my interview and podcast with my good friends, Mikey and Jake. Make sure to give them a follow, and we'll be back for more. But until then, I will see you guys next Saturday.